That doesn't do anything to the argument. So these are the arguments as used by the critics. But notice, I didn't put all the weight on this. I want to take the argument the critics always all allow, and that is start here and work all the way back to here, and tell me how else I can explain what I have from dive 8 to 5 years later, and then the fact that people had that before he had it. If he got it from somebody else, they had it before him. That's why I think it's a stronger move to go this way than it is to use the Gospels. But I think the Gospels argument is fine. I just think this is a stronger argument. And we don't hear this argument very often. Yes?
Do you think there's any contradictions in the Gospels like the bunch of Jews?
Any contradiction like that to Judas. I'll tell you what, when back on my skeptical days, Judas was my favorite example of a killer discrepancy. That was the one I would use with Christians. Since that time, I've found about, all you need are possible explanations, right? You need a plausible explanation. Let me give you one on Judas. Matthew says he hanged himself, if you just read the English text. Acts says he went out and fell. Now, fell off jumped or something off a cliff. Now, a lot of people say, well, maybe he hung himself and the rope broke and he tore himself up. I mean, that's possible, but that seems to me to be a lot of special pleading, right? You're just trying to take two texts and put them together. Let me tell you one that I think makes more sense. The verse in Matthew that says he hung himself, in the Greek, doesn't necessarily mean hung. The word is the word for committed suicide. And it's actually used that way in one of the intertestamental, one of the apocryphal books. It's actually used that way. So really, it could look like this. Matthew, he committed suicide. Acts, he fell or jumped off a cliff. Without saying the hanging part. Now, that's one explanation that a scholar suggested. But I would say this. I don't claim to be the be-all, end-all. I can answer every possible discrepancy. There's some tough ones. But notice the form of the argument I used tonight. This argument bypasses all of those. Because my argument doesn't say every word in this book is true and it's inspired. Now I believe the Bible's inspired, right? But my argument didn't say, I believe everything in here is inspired, so everything in here must be true. And you go, yeah, what about Judas's death? That wasn't my argument. My argument is, and I think I can work with those, but my argument is, let's talk about facts we share, no matter where you are on the spectrum. And if you go, well, I don't share those facts about Judas, I'd say, guess what? We won't use them then. According to my own theory, we won't use them. I'll only use the ones you're happy with. My point is, those can do the job. Now, let's just say at the end of the day, you bring 5 really hard cases up. I'm scratching my head. I'm going, man, listen, I'm trying to be really, really honest with you. And these 3 cases, I don't know how to work them out either. But here's my bottom line. They don't disprove the resurrection. Because if this is only a book of ancient history, which is what I started with, right? If this is only a book of ancient history, I would expect a bunch of those things I can't figure out. But we're only putting on the table those things we share. And if I can establish it based on that basis, you see what I mean? Let's say you come to me and you go, wow, yeah, I like this argument. I'm kind of ready to believe in the resurrection. There's like 5 little trouble spots in the gospel I can't figure out. I'd say, do any of them disprove the resurrection? You go, no, they just make me wonder. You know what I'd say to you? I'd say, well, then maybe you should believe the resurrection and take time to work those other ones out. You see what I mean? They don't militate against resurrection. That's one of the benefits of the argument I use. Yes?
What's the most difficult natural theory that you've ever had to disprove, and how did you disprove it?
That's a great question. You folks hear that? What is the best or hardest, maybe? Hardest?
Or the most difficult?
The most difficult natural theory I've ever had to answer. Well, I'll tell you, right now, I mean, I'm a long way down the road. Like I said, I've written 15 books in this, so I've done a lot of study. I'll tell you the one that bothered me the most when I was doubting. When I didn't think you could prove the resurrection. The one that I couldn't answer was hallucinations. The disciples thought they saw Jesus, but saw hallucinations. And the reason I couldn't was because I was using some of the best books in those days were written in the 19th century. And psychology isn't even going to start into science until about 1930. So I was using books where even Christians were conceding that people could see hallucinations that groups of people could see hallucinations. Well, as long as you could see that, I mean, that doesn't prove the case.